All right, so I emptied out my compost bin. Now, I showed you earlier that I kind of sifted it through a window screen and got all the smaller particles out, the vermicompost and whatnot. But I noticed that it wasn't staying warm any longer, and so that led me to think that it's got to a point where there's not as much decomposition. Because decomposition uses oxygen and generates some heat. So the temperature in the compost bin, if it's really active, should be at least a little bit warmer than the ambient temperature around it, within reason. You know, if it's 5 degrees outside, then it's probably not going to be warmer in here, maybe, but who knows. All right, now, so what I'm going to do is I'm gonna layer, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some paper and some fresh coffee grounds and then some compost. Repeat process, the lasagna method. All right, now I don't really have shredded paper this time. I've just got some paper that was left over from the copy room and it got cut up. And so this is the fresh coffee grounds. Generally speaking, you want like 3 or 4 times as much paper as you do coffee grounds. Instead of coffee grounds, you might use leaves, dried leaves and stuff in the yard. And take this, sprinkle that on there. And again, this has those soil mites and bacteria and some worms. All right. And then again, I'm going to use a small sprinkling of coffee. That's going to add some nitrogen. Paper is going to add some carbon. Now, these being bigger pieces of paper, they're probably going to take longer to break down, but we'll see how it goes. This is all the leftover compost that was in there. You might see some sticks and stuff that did not break down all the way. There's some leaves and stuff that were added. All right, and then again, just a sprinkling of coffee grounds. Coffee grounds are a little acidic, so we don't want to add too many at one time. Again, we want more paper than coffee in general. Oh, there's some worms. Oops. They're not super big and don't seem very active right now, but I'm gonna sprinkle just a few more, a little bit of coffee, a little bit of paper. There's already some paper in there that I added yesterday before deciding to mix it. I also added a little bit of orange peel. Now, generally speaking, if you're using worms in your compost, you don't want to add a lot of citrus because the citric acid and the oils can bother the worms. This was just one little piece of orange that I cut up, and I think it'll be okay in the long run. Interestingly, there is a story, I forget exactly where they did it, but if you imagine, the orange juice industry goes through a lot of oranges, and they had a problem where they didn't know what to do with their orange peels and pulp and whatnot. And so they made a deal with a country, I want to say maybe it was Costa Rica, but don't hold me to that, I could be wrong. And anyway, they went out and dumped all their orange peels and everything. And then like years and years later, it's all decomposed and it's like lush forest now. make sure there's no worms in the bucket. No worm left behind. All right, and so there it's been aerated. I'm going to put my aeration tubes back in. Again, I'm just making a hole. This is something you can do with your drainage or your compost at home. Maybe instead of getting your, maybe instead of plastic test tubes, at home I use drainage pipe, which already has some holes in it. I just added a few more with the drill. And this is just gonna hopefully help keep it aerated in between mixings, and we should see some progress. All right. Today is February 20th, 2006, and so we'll see how this looks next week. All right, the lid does not close all the way because of those test tubes. Well, it closes, but it's not completely flat. And that's probably good because that's going to help keep the top aerated and help air going into those test tubes. All right. The rest of the coffee grounds, these are all from K-Cups here at the school. This is going to go in the freezer, and of course I'll have to let it thaw before adding it to compost, but putting it in the freezer or even the refrigerator will help keep it from molding. Now, there may be some mold in here, and that's okay. The mold wouldn't hurt the compost, but it might get a little icky and maybe a little unsafe to work with if it gets too moldy. So that's why I put it in the freezer. The paper is dry, so the leftover paper can just kind of sit in a safe place where it won't make a mess. All right, until next time, stay curious.